Coming up on this week's Secrets from a Coach.
Well, we're the first generation that are learning to use this new shiny toy. So,
Yes.
We weren't raised by parental role models saying, make sure you're patient with everyone. I mean, I don't think patience was ever instilled in me as a child growing up. Debs, I've got a question for you.
Go.
It links back to that one about self-awareness. Have you ever had anyone knock on your coaching door saying, hello, I'd like some coaching because I think I'm a toxic leader?
Never.
Secrets from a Coach. Thrive and maximise your potential in the evolving workplace. Your weekly podcast with Debbie Green of Wishfish and Laura Thompson-Staveley of Phenomenal Training.
Debs.
Law, you all right?
Yeah, I am absolutely delighted by the fact you and I are mirroring a little bit of animal print.
I know. I just thought, I've got to do it. It was one of those where you go, I'm going to get one of them. Mine's a scarf though, Law, because it keeps me nice and warm.
Oh, my goodness. So I've copied you in the glasses and you're copying me now.
I thought then we could be aligned.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Oh, I think you look great because it's like a mirror.
Likewise, it's like a mirror. I know. You look lovely too.
Oh, my goodness.
Wait till I put the red lipstick on. That's really scary then, isn't it?
Oh, my goodness. In fact, Debs, it's at that point that the behaviour might be seen as being a little bit less okay, which is delightfully what we're going to step into this fourth in our 5-part focus, looking at what makes great workplace cultures. In the first one, we looked at behaviours and beliefs and how it's the stories that get spread that can really influence how people feel about the place in which they work or want to work. We then looked at, well, what does that mean in terms of spotting some of the things that can make or break a workplace culture? And last week was looking at actually there's a responsibility we have to ourselves to look after ourselves because a culture by definition will be bigger than the individual. So how do you keep those pristine boundaries, those oasis moments in the week, and make sure that you don't stuff it with more stress? So actually it's a mirage, that you keep that personal oasis kind of really tight and strong. Now, what happens if the people in which you're working with, so rather than the task load being the amount of stuff to do, but what happens if actually part of the culture in which you're working in, for whatever reason, people are starting to act in difficult, inappropriate or emotional ways that just maybe are ruffling some feathers. So what are you picking up? I've got a question, a live piece of work I wanted to pick your brains on, which I thought might be interesting from some live takeaways. But first off, as usual, how rife is inappropriate workplace behaviour at this point in time? What are you hearing behind the scenes of front of house in terms of some of those work cultures?
I think I'm hearing mixed, actually, and it's not until you go under the surface that you go, oh, this isn't right. And I know you're going to talk about that in a lot more detail. I won't go there, but that front facing, oh, it's all lovely jubbly and we're all getting along, yet you can pick up there's something not quite aligning here. And whether it's somebody that's not giving enough information or they're holding back or they just don't appear to be themselves when they're in a meeting or a group discussion. And as always, we always observe what's going on and listen for the nuances in people's language and words and tone. So you sense that something isn't aligning. And I'm seeing it quite a bit at the moment. I don't know if it's because people are like in that in-betweeny stage between, just come off summer holiday waiting for the end of the year. I'm not sure, but it's weird because it feels like there's uncertainty in some of the groups and teams I've been with. And I don't know where it's coming from until you get under the surface, but it's around. It is around. And I would probably say it's probably more there than we probably think it is. But because we're not in it, because we always come into an organisation or we are invited to coach somebody, we're not always privy to that level of detail.
Yeah, as in like the storyline as to what's led to the need for a full-scale team conflict resolution session.
Yeah, because we're only seeing, we only see a minute part. If you think, the teams we've gone into this week, for instance, we've rocked up. But we come away at the end of the day. We're not going back the next day to see them. So we don't know what goes on when we leave. So, but those that are left will know what goes on.
I think also as well, I mean, gosh, you'd have had this over. I know all of us as a team have, and we've, maintained some pretty strong confidentiality factors of people saying, tell me what my team was like in that training course, or someone from my HR or people team saying, let me know who shone really brightly and maybe people we need to keep an eye on. And of course, that's icky because if you've created a psychologically safe space based on confidentiality, like Vegas rules, etc., with that group of 12 people in a room, but actually they know that stuff's going to kind of leak out, that's a bit of a no-no when you're in our world of sort of facilitation. But I've also learned over the years how someone presents themselves in a training course can actually be quite different from how they are behind the scenes when they're working unwatched. So again, what we might not get to see when you're brought in, and in any consultancy role, people might talk a good game when they're there saying, I'm going to endeavour to show respect to my colleagues more.
Yeah.
And then inside everyone's going, yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
but it's given in that moment as if it's going to happen. But in terms of embedding that as new behaviours, so
Yeah.
I think sometimes people might perform in a certain way.
Yes.
But actually behind the scenes, it's a bit different.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're so spot on. You just made me think about when you do know they're just paying you as the external facilitator lip service. And I always call it out, because I just think, okay, that's interesting. So how are you actually going to do that? And even though you're saying it's a checkout, I just can't resist by going, I'm not sure if you will. I think you're just paying me lip service. You're wanting to go home. You're never going to see me again. So let me just really, I'm going to say this sounds really awful. I'm going to nail you down with what it is you're going to actually do. And because we don't let that go and go, oh, that's lovely, thank you, and move on. It's like, no. Are you really going to do that? What's the impact? All of that stuff. So we get them to question themselves more about their action. Because, yeah, you're right. People will just pay sometimes, not all, people pay lip service because they don't want to be in the training room or they don't want to have training. And, so they just say what they think they think we want to hear, if that makes sense.
So I think what we love bringing on these podcast episodes, and in fact all of our sort of workshops, is a real practical edge.
Yes.
So practically, a little question that I like asking is, so it's a safe way to get out the kind of, sort of risk factors. So let's say someone is saying, as a team, we need to really kind of clarify our ways of working. Brilliant. Right, I'm going to do this, this and that. So it's just before lunch, you've got a pre-lunch sort of checkout. And then if it all just feels a little bit too safe and convenient and people are starting to kind of look at their phones, right, say, okay, so I'm just going to ask a quick mirror moment. What would happen if none of this stuff that you've agreed to would happen? And then you just do a very little quick doom spiral.
Yeah. Yes.
And then then becomes apparent of, oh my God, we actually do have to do something. And that's a way of, it's positioned as a curiosity question. So what would happen if you didn't do that? So if you're working at the moment, we're in an environment where it feels like everyone's talking a good game, but actually nothing is happening and you're finding that there's increasing levels of irritation, then that kind of checking, that commitment, that contract that is given when you're agreeing something, to then ask and what would the consequences be if we didn't do that? And then it becomes where someone has to sort of confess, actually, that would be bad news. And because it's said out loud, the cognitive dissonance kicks in, which is, now I've said it out loud to the world, actually, we need to do that, otherwise we're going to go under. Once I've said it, I can't unsay it. And your brain then finds it really uncomfortable to not honour what you said you were going to do because you've said out loud the consequence.
Yeah.
And that might be a healthier alternative to the story that I heard last week, Debs.
Go on, share me your story. I love a story, Laura. Go.
Of someone saying how the cat was well and truly put amongst the pigeons because there was a senior leader who'd become so irritated and so incensed with the fact that they had all these quarterly catch-ups and nothing was happening, that they just lost the plot, basically, and just blurted out to everyone, you're all going to lose your jobs unless we do what we're going to do. Like, it's really that serious.
Wow.
So everyone's sitting there stunned, like, on LinkedIn over lunch thinking, the ship's going down, we've got to find new jobs. So the amount of the ripple effect that had, and it's not that it was necessarily the right or the wrong thing to do, but there could have been something maybe caught a bit sooner that then meant it didn't then get to someone having this big impulsive act that actually is going to damage their reputation as a senior leader, as potentially seeming like a bit of a risk, and it's damaged the trust between them and all their senior teams in terms of how secure they are in how the ship's been steered.
Oh my gosh.
Who knows whether that little closing question would have made a difference or not. But I think it's looking at these little techniques in that moment. If you're seeing a lack of commitment and then that's bubbling up in irritation and people venting left, right, centre, are there more convenient, confident ways to get that contract right in the first place?
I think there definitely is. And I think if we have a look at, I picked out top 5 reasons why people behave in a toxic way. So, because sometimes we need to understand what could sit behind that. As that say, even with that CEO just lost the plot, there would be a reason that sat behind that outburst. So should we explore some of the 5 that I picked? There's loads, but I selected 5. Should we do that, Law?
So, Debs, there are 5 things then that can cause even the most sane, rational person to just develop these less desired behaviours. So, what are these 5?
So the 5 I picked, I could have picked about 10 or 15 actually, Laura, but the ones I went with, which we do see a lot actually, is normally people behave in a bit of a toxic way because there's a sense of fear and insecurity. And it could be, like you were saying, if things like toxic behaviours like gossip, undermining, micromanagement, can be a bit of defence mechanism for some people because they may feel threatened by others' competence and attention or their success. So that's fear and insecurity within themselves can lead to that. Sometimes it's that overwhelm, that unresolved stress and burnout, and no one's hearing the fact that there's lots of pressure. They've got a lack of resilience. They're just worn out. And therefore people can lash out, or they can blame others, or they withdraw. So you might not have communication. You might never see them because they've just gone into their little cave, if you like, because they don't know how to deal with it. And then that emotional leakage can happen. Because
I love that phrase.
Yeah, emotional leakage about what is, rather than their intention to show up, these little things start pulling out. So your person you were talking about probably just lost the plot. But the third one for me has always been around lack of self-awareness and emotional intelligence. How aware are you as an individual of, your impact that you can have on others? So that level of really understanding self, understanding the impact of words, their language, their everything about them, their presence. So is it that they just have real poor self-awareness and just that lack of EI? And then also the one that I always think about, which we're seeing maybe a little bit, that those behaviours that sort of become embedded in the culture are not being called out if they're the wrong types of behaviours that we're looking for. So if they're getting, those behaviours are going unchecked in the workplace, then people think, well, this is just how we do things around here. So, and therefore they mirror what's being rewarded, which could be rubbish behaviour. So, but it could be a recognition. So, well, if they're going to throw their toys at the pram because they've suddenly got a pay rise, so am I. So that starts to breed that type of thing. And then always the last one we have to sort of take into consideration is there might be some personal stuff that they're struggling with outside of work that they're bringing into work, and that something might be going on at home. It could be anything that might trigger some of those behaviours, and it's aimed at their work colleagues because they don't know where else to go with it. So for me, it's sort of they're the 5 I see more often, I would think, over time, because we have to just go, I wonder what's going on for them. There's a reason why somebody is behaving in the way they're behaving. And we have to just take a moment, I think, and just go, do I know what's going on for them? No, I don't. Do I want to ask them? It might be so toxic, I don't care. But that's not a healthy place either. So it's thinking, what could be going on behind the scenes that we're not privy to, and we don't know, because I think, it isn't always about bad people. That's the other thing. It's often about unhelpful behaviours driven by that fear or stress or culture of the organisation.
Debs, I've got a question for you.
Go.
It links back to that one about self-awareness. Have you ever had anyone knock on your coaching door saying, hello, I'd like some coaching because I think I'm a toxic leader?
Never. Oh my God,
So-
I've had them referred to me.
And here's the rub, right? Here's the rub. So, and I was just thinking, yeah, God, these people that go around thinking, you know, that everyone is everyone else, not them. And then I just had a little mirror moment. So basically, in short, I did some hurried parking at the local station car park.
Did you?
And
Did you get a fine though, Law? Because I did.
Oh God! Well, I'm underestimated the amount of gap between the wall and my wing mirror.
Oops.
Anyway, my car currently has got the equivalent of a Veruca sock on its wing mirror. Where I've
Holding it together.
holding it together, and then turns out I hadn't even seen I'd gouged the door. Anyway, I was having a little chat with my husband, and he started to talk in a bit of a tone that I got really huffy with. And I said, but it's not like I do this all the time. This literally is like the first time I've trained the car. And he said, what, not like the time that you drove into mine when you drove back on the drive? And I went, I don't remember that. And he said, well, I remember it because I was fixing it all. And I went, no, honestly, I honestly don't remember doing it.
You blocked it out.
My memory has completely got rid of that little scrape that he remembers because he was out there in the rain fixing the car over the Saturday. I was conveniently forgotten about it because, it wasn't because someone else dealt with it.
Yeah.
And then, so in my mind, I remember that we called it. It was the lake woe begone effect or something. Of 85% of drivers think they're above average drivers.
Yeah.
Like, the stats doesn't add up. Like 85% of leaders probably think they are above levels of self-awareness than the standard leader. And even if it's your driving behaviour and just conveniently forgetting, oh yeah, I did do that, didn't I? And if you're spotting other people's behaviours of, I can't believe they didn't say thank you, how many times have I forgotten to say thank you?
Yeah.
So I think another thing isn't excusing poor or toxic behaviour, but
No.
sometimes I think it can be easy to get to the end of the working day and all you're doing is listing the things that you've seen around you.
Yeah.
And unless you have that sort of mirror moment, a bit of self-reflection, or you get some feedback that shocks you and takes you back a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you in a moment a bit of professional advice because I've got a session that I'm running for.
Okay.
But what in your experience are some little questions that can nudge a level of self-awareness? So are there any golden reflection questions that, let's say you're running a team meeting and you can see it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, we just need to crack on. What have you seen are some good questions that just shift away from the facade and into the real stuff?
Yeah, and most of them start with what I'm noticing. So for instance, I noticed you seem frustrated in that conversation or that meeting. What's going on for you today? Silence. If you can say what you observed and say, I could be completely wrong, but you don't seem to be yourself today. What's going on for you? That what's going on for you, silence, don't fill it, rather than go, I saw you do, because that's not going to help. It's really helpful to just put it back out there. It's been observed. I've noticed it. Quietly, not out in the front of the group, and then just ask what's going on for them today. That for me is the number one question. You don't seem yourself today. I noticed you were frustrated. I noticed you lost the plot in that meeting, which is not like you, providing it isn't like them. So show that curiosity as to what could be going on for them. Labeling the behaviour as well, I think, can really help. What I noticed, what I observed. Say what it is. It felt like label that the comment you made felt a little undermining rather than you're undermining me. So a slight, don't make it about them, if that makes sense. So that it's really hard. If somebody wants to work and is consistently interrupting you, again, we can sort of say, actually, I work best when we can share ideas without interruptions. Can we give that a go?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So it's enough to, I don't know, somebody said to me that feels a bit confrontational. I said, does it though? So I even questioned them back because obviously it hurt a nerve with them. And so I said, is it, what's that about for you then? because it will be about the other person as to why they go, well, I think that's a bit confrontational. Okay, so what does that say about them, rather than me? Because to me, it was like, why would I not say that? Because I've practiced over years and years and years to say that. But for somebody else, in that moment, you've triggered something. So I can't help but go into coach mode and try and understand what that thing is for them and then help them work their way through it.
Debs, there's a phrase you said a while back, and we work, even in the organisations we work with that are, ruthlessly commercial, it's all about money in the till. We also work between us as a team with organisations where it is their life's purpose to be working in that children's service or that hospital or that care provision. So, we're fortunate enough to have a whole big breadth of organisations in all sorts of different sectors in society. What was that phrase you said to me before about emotional detachment with heart? Or it was about how do I balance that caring, but not so much that it comes, and I don't want to sort of rehash over the boundary stuff we covered last week, but more if you're faced with some behaviour around you and your colleagues that is really frustrating you, what's that phrase that can help just keep it?
I can't remember exactly how I put it, but it's the emotional detachment piece. I think it comes also from radical candor. I care personally about you, but I'll challenge directly.
Compassionate engagement. I think that was the phrase.
Emotional detachment. That was it. Thanks, Laura. You're asking me everything. That's the phrase. But it's also that bit. I'll challenge. I care about you personally, but I'll challenge directly. But it's not about you. It's about what's going on. So it's fascinating when you think, how do you detach yourself though? Emotionally, because we run on emotions as humans, and I think that's the other thing is we don't know what we're triggering in other people either. And some people won't speak up if somebody's throwing their toys at the pram, or because they can't, I don't know if I want to be involved in this. That's their shit, not mine, as I always say. Because but it is fascinating when you watch that unearth itself in a room, because as humans we're emotional beings, so not like your lovely robots, Law.
I know. So let me just bang on about those in a moment, and then I'm going to ask you to basically help me with my homework.
All right, cool.
Let's talk about the robots.
Yeah.
So here's another thing that I'm thinking here in 2025, Debs.
Go on, Law.
So, yes, I hear what you're saying about the 5 reasons why some of these inappropriate behaviours might be coming out. We're also potentially still fatigued from a pandemic. True. Even though it is 5 years ago now, there's most organisations we work with, there's still some kind of ripple effect, even if it's working from home and all of those in-office, out-office sort of ratios. Could there also be another silent, ever helpful and ever friendly ingredient that is also maybe making this clashes from behaviours kind of on the rise in workplaces? And that is, we've had the silent rise of ever-present, ever-helpful, charmingly brilliant AI. So every time I use my ChatGPT, in fact, what do you call your one?
Arthur, I call my one.
Lovely. Now, the thing about ChatGPT is all it wants to do is answer your question and then some, and it will always say, what else can I do? And it will offer you an onward option each time. So it's a bit like Netflix for your entertainment. Yep. It is there to be personalised. It's there to pamper to your every whim. It gets to know you. It gets more and more intuitive. But maybe the humans around you, less so. So I think, I wonder whether waiting 5 minutes for a colleague to reply to a Teams message feels longer now, because I can just go into whatever AI I can use, and in under 5 seconds, I can get an instant response back.
Yeah, wow.
So does now that 4.5 minutes spending waiting for you to reply back, is that even more irritating now? Because I've got this non-human workmate that is just ever ready, always brilliant, and always happy to do more. Whereas we're there running episodes going about boundaries, do less. In the meantime, the AI is going, help me do more, because, I'm learning, you're the product.
You? Yeah. That's such a good link, actually, Laura, isn't it? And you're right. Whether it's completely out of consciousness, you're right. That response time, you won't get that from a human always. They won't be able to go, da-da, here's a 4-page document for you, because it will take them time to do it. So you're right. There could be some of that out of consciousness behaviour coming in. They're going, oh my God, they're so slow. Because they've been used to AI responding, their authors, or responding super quick. And yes, a good shout, Law. How do we deal with that though?
Well, we're the first generation that are learning to use this new shiny toy. So,
Yes.
we weren't raised by parental role models saying, make sure you're patient with everyone. I mean, I don't think patience was ever instilled in me as a child growing up. Respect and trust and manners and etiquette, but mine
was always give everyone a chance first.
Well, as long as it's within 5 seconds.
No. It was, I think that would be mine, actually, was, give everyone a chance first. Let's give them time to speak and think. That was, oh, my God, I sounded like my nan then. Give everybody a chance to talk and think. Yeah, okay. And sit there in silence.
Yeah. Oh, I was definitely trained not to interrupt, to always kind of listen and, that listening bit.
Patience and tolerance.
Yeah.
A little bit of tolerance. I think I was, that was what role model to my mum. Just be tolerant of others because she said they might not have what you have. I go, oh, thanks, Mum.
Yeah.
So, interesting, isn't it?
It is. But linking back to the AI bit, I guess, who knows? I don't know if there's been any kind of, any kind of research on it or not, but is our patience and tolerance for human response times, is it more irritating now because we're so used to these lightning quick AI response times? And does that then mean that we're a bit snappier, a bit gnarlier with each other because all I can see is it's taken ages for you to reply to my message because I've become so used to sort of instant. What's the solution? Not quite sure. I guess it's just being aware that you'll have some non-human colleagues as you develop in your career and human colleagues. And maybe part of our responsibility as the first generation to work alongside AI tools is to acknowledge that humans are different and you'll have some AI colleagues and some human colleagues, and there'll be, there'll be the pros and cons of both. I mean, no one's going to invite an AI to their wedding, are they? Whereas loads of times you go to a wedding, there's colleagues there. This might be a bit rude, Debs, for the podcast, but I'll say it in coded words. When I used to be the head of training for Ann Summers.
Did you?
Yeah. We used to say, the products, people would talk about how they had very empowering relationships with the products, but you wouldn't take it home to meet your parents. So there was definitely room for human relationships. It's not just the tech.
Oh my God, I love that. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Absolutely. So technology's always brought a spark to our lives, but it's just
which way?
Absolutely. It's working out the moments.
Yes, yeah. And what works for you might not work for someone else.
Absolutely, Debs. It's just the difference in the profit margin. That's all I'm saying. So, back to the humans.
Oh, yeah, back to the human. Yeah.
Right, here is my challenge. So, please, can I present you my challenge, Debs? And I'd love to get your thinking on this.
Of course.
Okay, so this episode has been all about what does that mean for me to behave when everyone is kind of behaving maybe inappropriately around me. So as part of a good, healthy organisation culture, what role do we all play? Because if you're stuck in traffic, you're part of traffic. It's one of my favourite phrases. So I've got this challenge coming up in about 6 weeks' time. I've got a day with an SLT. They're all hugely passionate with the role that they do because it does have real purpose in society. And so because of that, people are taking their jobs home and they are getting really kind of wound up and upset with some of the stuff. And some of the behaviours that apparently have been happening is gossiping, the SLT splintering into two. They're having meetings where everyone is nodding along and then they're all chatting about it outside corridors, whispered sort of after. And it's all just turned a bit kind of icky. So, following good practice in order to increase the chance of the day going well, because time is so tight, want it to go well, I've done an anonymous survey. And isn't it interesting? Everyone wants the same thing. They're all saying, I want us to be able to resolve some of these conflicts. I think we need to have like a code of practice in terms of how we address stuff. So what have been some of the things that you have seen work when you've got people that you are working with who maybe are just built of different stuff. So if you're quite an introverted person, you're working alongside an extroverted person, someone that might just want some bullet points and some simple instructions, someone else that wants lots of story and sort of chit chat. So what will be some things that you have seen work well, almost in that mediation, conflict resolution space? Because I've just got a feeling those are going to be really useful skills for us over the next 5 to 10 years in this ever-evolving world of work, because it's that human bit, is that, as you said, those emotions, and sometimes they're not always pleasant and comfortable.
Yeah, no, oh God. Well, I know you're going to nail it anyway, Law, but I think when we're looking at it from the different preferences or approaches that people will take, it's one, an awareness of how that person is being, and it's how we would then, need to respond. So, if we just link it back into the insights profiles, because that's what we do a lot of work around, isn't it? To start with, is the insight energy colours, and it's actually just thinking about how we can have some phrases that enable that conversation to go better. And it might not be your preference, but you may find by adapting your style to match that can actually help in the long run. So you're meeting them where they're at and then bringing them to a different energy around it. So for example, you could say, something like, okay, if you're having a fiery red conversation, you could say something along, I can't commit to that right now, but here's what I can do for you. So you're not saying no, but you're not saying yes, but it's your negotiation. I respect your view on that, and to deliver the results, I need something from you. Let's get clear on the outcome we're aiming for. Can we focus on the solution? That is, I just went, oh my God.
Question.
Yeah. So we're not going, you need to be quite blah, blah, blah. We're actually focusing on the solution. So what are we actually here for? The end game. So I think that's quite nice. Can we focus on that? Now, most people go, oh, yeah, of course. And then there might be a bit spiky, but you're still moving it forward. So that was there. Obviously, the energy that comes in, and sometimes, as we know, us sunshine yellows can be so enthusiastic about stuff. And then we might be turning somebody else off in that moment who isn't, as you said, quite as extroverted or energetic or happy or whatever about a new idea. And you could respond by saying to them, I really value your energy. Can we channel it into ideas that move us forward?
I think you've used that with me, Debs. Yeah, that's not an unfamiliar phrase to my ears.
You recognise that one.
That is literally like, do you know, I had a little moment today. I was telling someone about the flight that I did, and I said, the cabin crew had said, actually, sorry, madam, we've run out of Whispering Angel rosé. And I was like, oh. And then my friend said to me today, I think that was probably their way of managing your intake. I was like, oh, I hadn't even viewed it like that.
See, they're super smart at dealing with that. Super smart, yeah. Because they're if you like, that approach of being, I suppose, optimistic, relational, keeps the engagement going. So you're not, as you said, they're not telling you stop drinking.
Yeah, they were like, oh, I've drank it dry.
Yeah,
I always felt quite proud. Oh, right, okay, fine. Yeah, so that's where if you've got bags of energy and you can see everyone starting to roll their eyes, going, love the energy.
Yeah, love the energy.
How would that channel through to a practical next step?
Yeah, and can we channel it into ideas that move us forward? And that is we're moving forward. And then that's new and exciting for a sunshine yellow person anyway. So they go, oh yes, of course, and then be on it.
I'll have a gin.
Yeah, exactly. I'll have something else. What else you got?
I'm very amenable.
I love that. And if we take it to our lovely earth green, supportive, values driven people that want to always do the right thing, always to their detriment sometimes. And if somebody's really banging off at them, a really great little phrase that I've actually got here, but I want to work well with you. So I want to work well with you, and for that to happen, I need this from you. So again, that specific behavior, what you want to see different. I hear your frustration in what's happening or what's coming across. So let's revisit this when we're both calmer. So, and again, it's the way you deliver it has to be right. So again, we've got to have that level of self-awareness that we spoke about earlier in emotional intelligence to recognize how we say things It's not just what we say, it's how we say it, right? So our tone has to be not patronising, not aggressive, not confrontational, not over the top, not apologetic. I mean, it's a fine line, but forgetting it. But if you've positioned it in a way, but you go, oh, okay, yeah, I hear you. Yeah, let's come back in 5 minutes or whatever, and going forward from there. So there's a bit of empathy that comes out of that, steady, anchored in the values, because that's what's important from them. And, lastly, our lovely, cool blue, analytical, detail focused people who, on the whole, are on that introversion preference when we look at them from an insights perspective, and somebody's going rah at them, they can actually say, wow, that's landed really strongly. Can you clarify what you mean so I can respond accurately? And that is, wow. Or I have heard, one of them I wrote down here is, let's park this until we have the facts. We need to make a sound decision. Now, you need to have a relationship there, I think, before somebody goes, well, we haven't got all the facts. We just need to make a decision, because that could escalate. So I think you need to know the people that you're working with. And also the loved one, which I think I've heard you say in a couple of workshops before, something along the lines of, I'm just going to take a moment before to think before I answer that. And because this deserves careful consideration.
She says, fumbling for her phone, asking ChatGPT.
Exactly.
No, must
Let's
think for myself. Yeah, must think for myself. Yes.
Must think for myself, absolutely. But I think that actually, there's no reason why to go, I'm going to take a moment to think about that before I answer. Pause.
Yeah, I use that a lot, actually.
Yeah, you do. And I've heard you say that, and you watch, and people just go, okay. So it's that ability to recognise the adaptability of your preference, their preference. How do you phrase some of these sentences? And we always say, that the script is as good as the person that's writing it, right? So, you make it your own, but you get the gist of how you can position it if somebody is really, behaving in an inappropriate way, where the behaviours are draining your energy, or you feel triggered by somebody else's toxic behaviour, or you just want to put your boundary, like we talked about last week, want to put your boundary back in place in a respectful way, so that you're not constantly bashing heads with people.
Debs, I've absolutely loved this conversation. So we've been looking at what makes a healthy, thriving workplace culture. There's a lot of newness that's in our current sort of generation. So we've got not only multi-generations working in work, and what that means then to work well together, to handle conflicts, to challenge each other, in a way that feels aligned with values. We've got hybrid working. We've got ever increasing insidious AI that's there, that is at our beck and call, and then potentially that makes the humans the slow ones that are just irritating us. So rather than my teammates being in the way, I guess what we've looked at are some tools that just remain so we are the way to making great work, whether that's some practical phrases, whether it's a general mirror moment of, actually, this isn't the first time I've pranged the car. When I stop and think about it, seems to be happening a few times. Maybe it's not just the other drivers. Maybe I'm part of that as well. All in the pursuit of working well with each other. So I'm going to do my share the secret, and it'd be great to end on your call to action. So I think this would be a good listen. If you know anyone for whom has been talking about how things are getting a bit difficult in their workplace at the moment, or they're supporting someone that is, and hopefully what we've looked at are some practical approaches to stepping forward so it doesn't feel like it's stuck. Because if you're still saying the same things this time next year, then that's where things can get a bit down and a bit it knocks away at your personal energy, because it just feels like you're stuck, and we always have a choice. And so what we've looked at, hopefully some practical approaches. So Debs, what would your call to action be? What would be something that you think would be useful for us to work on this week?
Yeah, I think going back to what we said at the beginning, that toxicity even isn't about bad people, it's about their unhelpful behaviours driven by fear, stress or culture. So we mentioned that right at the front, but mine would be to take a breath, manage yourself first. So take a breath, and as I always said, respect your own boundaries, look after your well-being, but actually don't get caught up in their shit, because it's theirs, not yours.
Lovely. Debs, with that in mind, I have absolutely loved this conversation. I think this has been
cool.
a really interesting 5-part focus. And we've got in our 5th one, we're going to be looking at what role do we play in creating a great place to work. So build on more of the self-awareness and some things that we can then do. And I think it might be really interesting to start to look at habits and patterns, because I think that always generates quite a bit of interest, actually, which is if, as I sort of said in the Share the Secret, if you think this feels a bit familiar, I've been here before, then sometimes just having a bit of that language and framework to help recognise and break a pattern can be really empowering.
Yes.
So, Debs, have a wonderful week.
You too.
You remember, just the tiniest little bit of technology can create mind-blowing results.
I can bear that in mind, Law.
I hope you enjoy your Arthur ChatGPT.
Thank you so much. I love that.
Oh,
Have a good
Debs.
one.
You too.
Love you.
Bye. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at contact@secretsfromacoach.com or follow us on Insta or Facebook. If you're a Spotify listener, give us a rating, as it's easier for people to find us. And if you want to know more, visit our website, www.secretsfromacoach.com, and sign up for our newsletter, here to cheer you on and help you thrive in the ever-changing world of work.